Hello, everyone. Welcome to the seventh episode of the Bugspeaks podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about a very fun topic: microbiome and investments. Anything in deep science requires a lot of investments, and we've had a very interesting journey on this. So, with me to share this journey is Deb. Um, uh, this is our favorite topic. Unfortunately, both of us don't drink as much, but it would be a very good topic over a bottle of beer. But yeah, let's start off the on what do you see worldwide in terms of microbiome investments?
Yeah, I think this is a topic we discuss along with Prabhat, where three of us are outside and why it's not happening, why this is happening, why that is happening, especially in the investment space. But yeah, we thought we'll put into perspective in this podcast about the investment climate for the microbiome space. Um, Kumar, investments are happening. The peak, I think, in the investment in the microbiome space was around 2018, 2019. Um, in the US and the Europe, most of the investments have taken place in the microbiome space. India, uh, we're still catching up. Let me put it mildly that way. But yeah, so look, we started this journey 11 years back. At the same time, or even later, some of the other microbiome companies came into existence, but they got much more funding than we could, mainly because they were in the US or in the Europe. And who knows better than you, Kavan? The pressure that we were to relocate to US and Europe so that we can get a good amount of funding, because the kind of science we were doing was very new. So we don't blame anyone. You're not here to blame anyone, but we'll discuss about the understandings that the investors uh, may have about this space and what we as a company can do to improve their understanding. So yes, if you can put your thoughts on the pressures that we were put into to relocate to US, Europe, or even Singapore, so that we could get funding. And yeah.
Yeah, but let me define microbiome based investments in microbiome companies. What is a microbiome company? I am not defining a probiotic nutraceutical seller as a microbiome company over here. I mean, I'm no disrespect or anything. It is just two different domains by itself. When we're talking about the microbiome, we're talking about understanding the microbiome core and building products out of it. I mean, that could be IP based kind of products. Probiotics have been existed for the last 40, 50 years now. A lot of pharma companies, sell their own probiotics. There's no IP behind probiotics. I mean, it's um, so as a company, there's very little value to do R&D and make it better. So I'm defining it that way. To do a lot of microbiome science requires a lot of heavy investments. Unfortunately, I mean, there's a lot of wet lab, there's a lot of dry lab, and you got to get the best brains in molecular biology, microbiology, statistics, business acumen, all coming together to make products out of this. And it is investment heavy. There is no denying it. This is deep science. This is deep technology. I think the three of us were young and naive to think that we could do this. If we start a company, that's it. I mean, we'll be able to sail through, make good products, and go. They didn't realize that investment. It was this heavy an investment, and we would struggle a lot to get investment. The globally, the trends that we saw, the microbiome investments made into two different buckets. The first bucket, of course, was the consumer microbiome trend. I think Ubiome was the first company out of UK to come out to do the consumer microbiome, and they raised a lot of money. Biome in the US has raised a lot of investment. So is Microbar, Day2, and I can name a lot of consumer-facing companies who have actually Day2 has their own. I'm sorry, Microbar and Day2 probably has their own technology. Sorry again. Microbar has their own data technology. Day2 has outlicensed it from from a university. So is Biome. I think they were placed from a university. So the core technology is needed, whether you're doing it internally in a company or you're out-licensed the technology from research scholars is one thing. But that technology is needed to get the science up and going. And for that, fundamental technology is where a lot of investments were needed. I think for us, it was a combination of our work experience that we managed to cut through a lot of the R&D spend. Secondly, being in Bangalore, we had the best brains at a relatively inexpensive cost as compared to global standards, which is why we pulled it off. But I didn't think we faced such a uphill task in trying to get investment, and that is because we were very, and even now, I think we are very think about wanting it only for doing the core microbiome science. No, we're not looking at to raise as a consumer company or do. We want to understand the microbes better, and we want to make products out of that out of this. So, um, this is the early stages, the trends that we saw, and globally there was enough investments that's happening in the microbiome. I think we were bit I don't know, maybe ignorant to think that the same kind of trends will happen in India, but India is a very different market, and hence there was pressure to go relocate to either Boston or Singapore to try and raise funds over there and to do it, which uh, it was a tough decision that we took not to go there.
Yes.
We struggled a lot, but now it's paying. It's dividends for it. Yeah. Your memories from these days.
Correct. No, I mean, see, the investment, as you said, I mean, we didn't realize it will be so difficult to convince investors in India on something that would. And by the way, we were earning revenue. It was not that unlike life science companies where the gestation period is long. We're we are continuing to get revenue from our day one. But see, the problem is, again, not blaming anyone, but the investors were comparing oranges with apples. I mean, you remember, I mean, many of the investor meetings we were told that, not all, but just one or two I'm saying, a particular app is getting, a lakh of or 100,000 downloads per month. Your test is being just X number, which is 1/10 or 1/100th of that. How do you, match up? But they don't realize that this is a different ball game altogether. Uh, Building an app, getting downloads is a different ball game. Making sense out of microbes, making products out, because ultimately it's data, and the data has its own value. But these are the things which probably some of the investors or many of the investors don't look at, which the Western counterparts, look at in much more fuller way. And that's the reason I think we are still maturing. We're not yet. See, we are a startup country. Only in the last few decades we have become a startup country, right? Decade and a half maybe. But US and Europe have been doing this for ages. So of course their investment community is much more mature than ours. So they will also learn. Indian investors will also learn. Also, I think, Kumar, the investor community needs of someone who is a flag bearer of success in the life science domain. We do need Infosys and TCS in the life science healthcare space.
We need a Flipkart story for the life science space.
Correct, exactly. So I think we are heading there. Buck Peaks, Lucinrijba is going to be one of those success stories, hopefully. And once that comes out, then the investors will have much more confidence on putting their money in a deep science companies. There are many deep science companies right now which are working, and most of them are struggling, by the way. We know because we are in that space, we understand, we talk to the founders and so on and so forth. But investment in the Western countries are also are in two buckets. If you see lot of investments, the majority of the investment, the bulk of investments, the quantum of investments are in the therapeutics because the returns are also much higher. Whereas the other investment, the D2C company investments like the Viomes and the Day 2s and all those, from our standard, they have got good amount of investment. But if you compare the investment with the microbiome therapeutics companies, that's not really great. So what do you think in terms of the microbiome space? Uh, If you were the investor, where would you put your money, on a D2C company or a microbiome therapeutics company?
In a company which does both, which is us. But microbiome therapeutics has a lot of promise to it. The fact that you can get a molecule which is actually working with the microbes and not directly with the human cells. Thereby, if you can get the efficacy and get the toxicity down, which I think will happen, you're going to get a blockbuster drug out of it. Which is why companies worldwide, microbiome companies worldwide, which has a platform which can showcase this, are getting heavily invested. Um, so that's our endeavor also, and I think that's where the money is also going into. Saying that I think all the world's knowledge put together, we understand less than 10% of the gut microbiome. Forget about all the other microbiomes. I mean, I'm not even talking about skin, oral. Just the gut microbiome we understand so little. So the better the understanding that we get, the more the potential therapeutic products that can come out of this. And from there, you're going to see a large blockbuster deals, blockbuster molecules coming out of it. I mean, we're going to get Ozempic like uh, molecules which can actually do wonders, um, both in terms of metabolic syndrome, in terms of good health, less toxicity, all coming out. So this is where I think I would put my money on, and I see a lot of global companies, global venture companies putting their money on. I've spoken to many of them, and the feedback is the same. Though, if you can, if efficacy can be shown, there is definitely money behind it. And if models, mice models, rat models can show that efficacy, there's a lot of money behind it. But that journey is very different. That journey is very different from a consumer journey, or even a SaaS platform kind of a journey. So in that sense, I've always found it difficult to explain to investors. So I take the blame for not getting a lot of investments for a while. Unable to explain this to the investor in a very coherent manner. I mean, we have three kind of products that go on a well RV, right? One is the core Bugspeaks, which is a testing product. You send the kit out, you get the sample back, and then you generate report. The second, especially for international companies, we install softwares where they do all the testing and the processing, but it's our software which is actually creating the report. And thirdly is the therapeutic assets that we are working on. I mean, this could be new age probiotics to kind of a small molecule kind of therapeutics. All of that is working on. And um, as a company, I mean, it is. I think it is important to focus on all three and grow all three. Um, Whereas I think the investors have a different, slightly different mindset as to how they want to look at it. It's what I see what I see very interesting in the investment space world over is more and more family offices are getting interested in the microbiome space. It is not the traditional VCs; it is FOs which have a lot of capital and they have a lot of gestation period. They understand both the humanitarian value behind this as well as the returns that they can get out of it, and the family offices are the ones that are jumping big behind any of the investments. Actually, with a lot of the investors who we've gone into 2 or 3 rounds of talking, one of the LPs have been a family office who's been invested in the microbiome space, which is actually pushing the actual VC to actually talk to us. So that's uh, they have a much better understanding of this space right now. And you rightly mentioned, I mean, we just don't, in the life sciences space in India, we don't have a success story. I mean, we can't. Um, there's no Flipkart moment that has happened right now. There are a few companies that are reaching there, and I hope they become flag bearers, or we will get there soon enough to become flag bearers. And um, that should lead to more investments, and hopefully someday we are investing in companies which can do more such investments. But I know the space is not your most comfortable space. But what do you see is the D2C trend in investment? Do you see that continuing as well?
So, when we started this podcast, you mentioned that for us, microbiome companies are not the companies which are selling probiotics with different names and so on and so forth. I believe so. I mean, in the sense, it's a much more deeper word than just probiotics, right? So D2C companies, uh, of course, we started this trend in India 2017, if you remember. Our first product, Buckspeak's Gut Microbiome Test, um, with a very high MRP share, was in the market. But now we see many coming, and which is good for the domain, which is good for the space, because then company like ours are also on our toes to make our products better and so on and so forth. And also it goes to show that, see, when new companies are coming, someone is investing some small seed amount here and there, right? That means that interest is developing. The buzzword around gut health is enormous. I mean, go to Instagram, although I'm not in on Instagram, but I can feel, see, hear people talking about gut health. You see the advertisements. Take more fiber. We can take a little bit of credit for bringing that aspect in this space, but uh, everyone is talking about gut health. Even the recent conference that I was part of, there are pharma companies which are now trying to please the audience by saying that it is good for your gut health also. The product that we are selling is good. So and gut microbiome plays a very important role in that. So I think the D2C companies in India is doing that's a space that is getting a lot of attention. In terms of investment, we are still lagging. I don't know whether most of these D2C companies are funded to a level that is comparable even to the European or the American standards. But uh, things are happening. But but again, the mindset has to change in India for the investors to see. Any investment is a risk. Correct. But the problem that I see, again, from the experience that we've had, is that investors don't want to take too much risks. Then it's an oxymoron, right? Investment is risk, but you don't want to take risk, and then you don't want to invest. So if you are taking a risk, then you are investing. So that kind of mindset has to a bit change in the Indian scenario. Good, you brought the Ozempic example. It's a remember our Connectious days when we used to work on type 2 diabetes. Early 2010, these are called incretins, by the way, GLP analogs and all. So it took 15 years from 2010, if you take 2010 as your baseline year, to 2025 for a product like a GLP-1 analog or GLP-1 receptor analog, so on, to show efficacy in weight loss and metabolic syndrome. So it takes time. I mean, life science, healthcare, there are certain things which take time. We need investors with that maturity in India. In US, Kumar, Khosla Ventures or even Seventures, Ventures, which is more active in the European continent, I guess. They have been investing in some of the microbiome companies. We need some of those kind of capital intensive companies or in organizations in India which focus on these kind of domains. Not only microbiome, even RNA delivery, because see, no deep science domain is independent. You might have a very good, let's say, hypothetically speaking, let's say we come up with a very interesting product, but if its delivery is not great, then even though the product is good, it is not going to be efficacious, right? So, so it has a combination of so many factors and so many players that need to be in the ecosystem to make a particular product work. So, so that's my take on the investment cycle that we have seen. But I think you have dealt with, I don't know how many, but I don't know whether you can even count on your fingers, hundreds of investors, right? I mean, you take the investors' calls day in and day out, and thank you for that. uh, what is your take on what are the you have seen the trend, right? Talking to investors in 2014 versus talking to investors in 2025. You have seen the shift in the tone, tenor of the investor. If you can give our audience some of those flavors.
So I mean, I'm the unofficial reviewer of for a lot of the VC companies in India. So I get the number of decks that I get to review to, if there's anything slightly biological deep science, I often get a deck to review to see if it is a good company for the VCs to invest or not. I wish I made money out of it, but but it's it's a nice way to understand how the market is evolving. And I see the shift slowly happening. More and more investors have now got that mindset of trying to understand any deep tech's deep science space and see whether they can invest or not. Whether they're currently investing or not is a different matter. At least they're trying to do it, which is a good thing. A couple of new ventures that have come out in the last 2 3 years are only doing deep science and investment, and which is again very refreshing to see. I mean, they are very focused on identifying companies which are into deep research and trying to get products out of it, long gestation periods. And unfortunately, we're much further ahead than where they are right now. But these trends are coming about. The the fact of the matter is the basic necessities in India, like getting regular good quality milk supply to home is still so broken that even the 50th Swiggy still has value to whatever that they're trying to do. So I don't want to belittle any of those investments, but from all the money that's been made out of these kind of companies, there's that is slowly, at least a part of it is slowly getting into deep science right now. And as a management balancing their portfolio, I think every investor is now thinking getting one or two deep science companies is good. So I see that shift. Thankfully for us, for every investor, as like you said, I've spoken to 100 plus investors. Every investor has taken our test and continues to recommend our test. So it's good business. I mean, this is uh, after a 45-minute call, free word of mouth marketing that happens for us. So I'm glad, and I feel sorry for that second microbiome company who keeps getting a question as to how are you better than LRB. I feel their pain. But the mindset is changing, and I see that change. I see the willingness of investors wanting to look at deep science, and it's coming. It's even on day one. It was the LPs that dictated what returns, when, timelines, all of that. The LPs are changing now. You see a lot of people with startup exits becoming LPs in a lot of funds. A lot of the ex-founders are now starting their own funds, so they understand these kind of cycles better. There's exposure to the ecosystem in US and Europe, and what that does. Um, and that system is evolving. Even from international players, I was pleasantly surprised that in a conversation that I had last week, I mean, I was showing some of the therapeutic works that we can do, and the stages that we are in. They don't mind investing in an Indian company. Previously, about 3 4 years ago, the talk would have been, please relocate to Boston for this. And now you know although this is maybe a couple of firms that have said this to me, but at least there's openness of putting money outside their geography and into an Indian company, and thinking there'll be good significant returns coming out of that. So that ecosystem, so it's not only the Indian ecosystem which is maturing and changing and becoming more cognizant about spaces like this, but it's also the international VCs who've never done investments in India are also looking at interesting companies where they can directly invest into India. The second thing, especially for life sciences companies, where there's a lot of gestation period, and where there's going to be steady revenue, and then suddenly a spike, and then again steady, and then a spike, and a you know not a hockey curve, but like a stepwise agreement that is going to happen. Is the SME IPO is also kind of opening up, right? I mean, you see that maturing. I mean, from a lot of I own a shutter and I'm going to swindle people through an SME IPO, to now it's actually becoming a mature IPO ecosystem. and a stepping stone to the main board. And I think that is also encouraging a lot of the investors to look at companies like us, So that's also playing a part. A lot of the new regulations that have come addressing this is also playing a part. The Startup India Awards is also helping put spotlights on, we were an award recipient in 2021 for the best life science company. And uh, you did all of the groundwork for that. I remember the rigor that you had to go through to prove that we were a good life science company, which has also become a good indicator as to investors as to which companies to focus on. And I see that with CCAM's incubation, with all the incubation centers that are open all over India, there is so much of spotlight that is being put onto these companies, and they are attracting investors to come and put in money and showcasing. The good thing about these incubation centers is they're showcasing what is possible and what is not possible, and being realistic about it. And that's how I think more and more investments come into place. So overall, I see a maturity happening in this space. Uh, 5 years from now, we'll have a totally different conversation. I think it'll be we'll see a lot of deep science, not only in bio but bio space, manufacturing, whatever you call it. I mean, any of these deep science spaces getting a lot more mature, lot more investments going into this space. Food technology is another thing in India which is growing so well. CFTRI has incubated about 15 odd companies this year, and I see a lot of interesting products coming out of there. The European manufacturer Bueller has a manufacturing plant over here, which are encouraging startups to go and do their POC over there, so that many international venture arms of the international companies can look at whether this is fundable or not. So those kind of ecosystems are happening in India, and I think that is.
No, I think you touched a very important point, Kumar, in what you said. It's also about founders getting an exit from these companies, and because they know the rigors of running it's not just a VC play, right? So the founders getting exit from their successful ventures, and they're putting money in deep science companies makes a lot of difference. I think we can give a shout out to our current investors who have been very patient with us, and they understand the space because they themselves have been the founders and they have run a company. They know the rigors of a company. So I think that is also changing in India. More exits, more. I would not say wealthy in a wrong manner, but founders who have seen the pain of scaling a company from zero to something that they have done, and using that proceeds to develop that ecosystem, make more companies come up the ladder and do the
Look at what Dipinder is doing with continuous.com, with the
longevity. He has started a new fund now
correct.
on longevity.
And the aerospace company that he's gotten into and all that. So it's these founders that are going to improve
We need more Elon Musk's type of investors, not the character I'm saying, in terms of the visionary investors. Then only, because the government can do only this much. If we expect government to fund everything and anything, it's not going to happen. They have to take care of other things also. So the private equity market has to evolve in India. And for that, the investors have to understand that, there's a return, but the return will come only when you have patience and you have to differentiate the shaft from the grain.
Correct.
And for that, I think people like you would be onboarded for a lot of these VCs.
The amazing thing in our journey is that we've got more acquisition offers than investment offers. So that can tell you the kind of mindset that people have. But like I said, I mean that's changing, and that is where this is going to, I think, propel a lot of new companies that are there in India. So
Can I ask you one hypothetical question?
huh.
Suppose you had to pitch to a international VC in Europe or US for that matter. What would you pitch him or her? What will be your USP when you are pitching Speaks and Lucentage Bio versus when you are pitching an Indian mature investor?
Uh, no, I mean, after so many years of doing this, I've kept it. It's become very simple. I'm just going to tell them what we do, and if they're interested, they can come on board. If they're not interested, they don't have to come on board. The world is filled with microbes, and we understand them. And from this, we will make products. That's the simple line. And that's what I start off with a lot of the investment pitches. But I think we have become very, very selective about the kind of
Very important.
investors that we want to take on board. We've started saying no to a lot of people, and somebody who understands the space, somebody who understands the longevity that this is going to take. Although it's been an 11-year journey, we are foreseeing another 20, 30 years of doing this ourselves and to get it to another stratosphere altogether. So I'm not taking the bait, Dev. The pitch is going to be the pitch is going to be the same no matter who the investor is. Uh, Before we end, I wanted to end uh, on the first investment pitch that I've ever had, and this is from a group of guys who've been they're traders and they've been successful traders. One is a sari king, one was a plastic toy king and stuff like that, and we went and pitched microbiome to them. So but I still remember every word they dissected in the pitch deck. They showed me where we're losing. They went down to you're losing 25 paisa on this transaction, and it kind of jolted us into being much more strict about our finances, looking into everything much more minutely. But I can never forget that experience. That was the first experience, and it was a for me it was a good one.
Absolutely.
All right. Anything else, Dev, that you want to add to it?
I see we have covered everything in this episode regarding investment. One last parting shot, maybe. As a microbiome company, because the episode is on investment in the microbiome space, um, uh, we generally foresee a lot of interest, as you are saying. I mean, we are getting a lot of interest from potential investors, but now we are at a stage where we can only onboard people who align with our kind of mindset. I think for any upcoming company, I think the focus should be on running the business. Investors will follow.
Correct.
Because if you focus only on investment and not on the business, your investment is going to dry up very soon. So I think that is the mantra that we have understood in our 11 years of journey, that build the business. Investment is very important because it works as a catalyst. You remember, like, a small amount of advance money helps us to make our revenue grow 1.5 fold. So that advance money is like an investment for us, because we haven't got the kind of investment which a European or an American company would get. But that has helped us in making our business better. So, so my parting shot will be to focus on the business for the companies. Investors will follow, but at the same time, keep educating the investors about the space in a proper manner. I mean, there's no shortcuts to anything in this world. So that's it.
Yeah, wise words from Deb. And with that, we come to the end of the episode. So until next week, see you.